All right, this is also going to be two parts where it's a test of my audio equipment on my computer and another recording of the. Every time I say it, it sounds retarded, but I've already made several videos towards it, so I'll have to accept that I've made a series and I'm calling it Ideological War because I'm trying to group my thoughts in that way. Because I do believe that this goes towards it for like my what I'm recording all this for is my view on why I find it weird. The observ no, the observations I have made about people's reaction to Trump as a person and why I find it to be weird. Because from my understanding, he has always been what is the summary I came up for was that he's a bullshit artist. He is a he is a person that is good at stroking the egos of other people, and then he also enjoys the power and influence that he gets from it. Like it's not parasitic off of the social layer of humanity. It's actually reciprocal. It's narcissistically and self-servicing reciprocal, but it still works within the he would be great for he should be great for politics. This is one of the things that I find to be weird. He should be great for politics because of that nature. Because he's able to walk into a room and read a person and be like, I can get you what you want, and then sell that person on that. That's a good skill to have in that environment. And it's one of those things where you should be like a fish in water. You should be like a pig in shit. But for whatever reason, the whole of the political left, some of the right, but all of the left seems to be against him to the point where they treat him like he's Satan. For no want of a better word, they treat him like he's evil. But he is a predictable person. And then there's multiple layers on top of it where I know for a fact a lot of these people are college educated. It's one of the things that goes into the job requirements of even working in government or working in any field in general. It requires a college education. College, the environment tends to lean more politically left. Now, in that situation, you can understand that if you have a Republican, and most people that coming out of colleges are Democratic, like in those sharp divides that we have in the United States, you can understand where there will be some friction in that case. But you would also expect, with the long track that we have had in this country, I'm saying long track because as far as other countries, we're a very young country, but there's still a record, not a record, there's still a track record of not a track record, an assumption. I'll put it there, an assumption of a constant battle going on or constant struggle for power going on in between the Democrats and the Republicans. That is an assumption. So if you come across a situation where a majority of the staff of your governmental institution is crewed by people who are educated in a system that more and more leans to the left wing of political ideology, it is understandable that there will be some friction even in people's day-to-day lives. They could want to do the best that they can, but it would be harder and harder to check their own bias because they're steeped in one side and not the other. In particular, it comes down to like what makes it more stark for me is the, I guess they call it a factoid, little bit of information I came across that it's hard for the left to accurately describe the goals of the right or like the attitudes of the right. They're not able to like play devil's advocate for them. They're not able to argue their side. Whereas the right has more of a tendency to be able to argue for the left side. There's still a discrepancy because people aren't able to, they're not even able to observe themselves. It is an accomplishment for people to be able to observe themselves. So it does make sense for it to extend into if some people aren't able to observe themselves, it is less likely that they would be able to observe the characteristics of somebody that they, by reflex or by instinct, don't like. So I can accept that. But I'm still going back to like the observation of Trump that I find to be weird, even in that environment where he's running as a Republican. Democrats aren't. aren't going to like him. It's more, I would think it would be more principle based and not personal. It sounds like from everything that he's been charged with, everything that they've gone after him for, it's more fuck you, I hate you, instead of I disagree with what you're doing, but if you're elected, I'm going to back you. Because that is governmentally, that's how the system is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be personal. Whatever, what is this saying? I'm probably gonna fuck it up, but this is how I remember it. I may not agree with what you said. No, I may not. Yeah, yeah, I may not agree with what you say or what you're doing, or like how you believe it. I'm still fucking it up. I may not agree with what you do, but I would defend to the death your right to say it. Yeah, I may not agree with what you say, but I would defend to the death your right to say it. You have the right, or through abilities, but that's a separate argument I want to get into. That you should be arguing from a standpoint of that you want to exercise that ability, and if you cannot argue me down, you have no right to stop me. Instead of I have the right to do this, you cannot stop me. Like one is negotiable, and the other one is you making a demand. From my point of view, but that's besides the point. Um, I may not agree with what you have to say, but I would defend to the death your right to say it. What I mean by that is everybody has the right to express themselves. I'm trying to get down to why it's weird, the perspective that people have on Trump, and understanding the common middle that is there. I understand that there is a two-party system within the United States. They try to say that you have choice, but ultimately it still boils down to red versus blue. So, in that in that environment, he is a Republican. He ran on the Republican ticket. He is an old school Democrat, but he did run on the Republican ticket. On the same note that Bernie Sanders should have been green, but he ran Democrat. It's you have to play the angle you have instead of playing the angle you want sometimes. So why is it weird? I'm still trying to narrow, because I don't know if I've actually said everything about why I think it's weird. I was just getting into the admittance that I understand that there's a common ground, like that there should be some friction in between the political parties, and it's understandable given that for at least the voters, it comes down to principles you have no control over on what political side you will lean towards. There's a heavy amount of nature in your political decisions. Whether you want to accept it or not, that's on the board. So, in that environment, and given how college is a requirement for political staffing, and that colleges are leaning more towards the left, so you have a Republican in office and a Republican, I think it's a mod, majority Senate and House. Though I think it got moved on this. I have to research, not research. I have to remind myself of the exact map that it was. I remember the day of the election, it was majority red, but I don't know if it's switched back because not all the counting had been done when I looked at the map. Okay, so back from a break. The point out that there's a common ground, how that leads into the idea of that it's weird, is that it's like playing devil's advocate, taking it to its extreme. Let's say he is evil, Machiavellian tendencies, wants to rule over the world, wants to be a new age Caesar. That doesn't matter where you take it. He's still predictable because every person is. And I don't understand the level of agitation that people have over his actions because of when evidence comes out about the actual state of the government, there are more benefits to letting him go than trying to obstruct him, at least on the civilian to state level. Federally, I can understand he Batman to you, and I know I'm being not facetious, not even rhetorical, dismissive. That might sound insulting, and I don't give a fuck. It's because, like, at the federal level, the government's actions should be, if you want to put it in like any kind of comparison, it should be like God. Like, you're aware that things are happening on that scale, but it's not happening directly in your life and fucking up shit for you. I know that you're moving on my behalf, and I know that by you staying out of my fucking way. Like that kind of relationship. But I know that my attitude of that towards any level of federal governments isn't really commonplace. And then even that I would want to get into, but that's part of not even I don't even think that would be part of the ideological war series because that's more of the you do not need to use force to push social issues, but that does seem to be a tendency. And then that fact, that little bit of information is the basis of why I started paying attention to anything that was being done through education, through entertainment, through social programs, through the government, where they were applying force to things that they were saying are a common good or making people better or improving a past situation that went wrong. And then when you look into it, it's like, motherfucker, no, it's not. Consistently, that has been happening in entertainment, in politics, in economics, in medicine, in science, where it just seems like people are again, didn't want to be derogatory. I was going to say essentially they're saying trust me, bro, but it's not as base as that. They are trying to sell people on false hope. So all this relating back to Trump, it seems that the people in politics, at the very least, in entertainment and other areas, seeing people when they really go crazy over Trump, it seems that they have that mentality in mind, and that is more of a threat. Where you have someone who is selling you on false hope, and either that they believe that they're building a better tomorrow in the way that they're operating, or they believe that lying to you and making you think that what they're doing is making a better world, once you get through the meat grinder, there'll be something better on the other side. Like, either of those paths are utopian thinking. Like, you believe you can make a perfect thing. Nothing can be perfect because it's not built by beings that are perfect. And also, there's a vast amount of chaos that's in the natural world that you can't account for. So, you're not doing a thing that is, at least within your lifetime, or stretch it out over multiple lifetimes, which is something you have to do. You can't achieve a utopia because there's always going to be social friction. Because there's always going to be people in that situation. And people with their egos and their desires will create friction. Unless they're in total agreement, which they never will be. So it's one of those things where it's why I brought up the whole college thing and psychology. And okay, I didn't bring up the replication issue or the replication crisis. So I think I have an idea of why it's all running together. And it, like I was saying, it seems like the ones that should be more attentive towards those things that are making their chosen profession less efficient. Like, when it comes to the things that they should be focusing on, what they really get animated and angry about is Trump when he is a known quantity. He sold himself in the book when it comes down to like how he wanted to be understood and how he wanted to live his life. It's the man's an open book. And this oddest thing is like this is one bit of information that I know is entirely anecdotal, but every time I think about it, it's very funny to me. The only thing that saved Trump's life was him being Trump. You look at the video of the bullet that whizzed by his ear, it was him gesturing and doing the things that he just naturally does, being him, where it went by his head and didn't take it off. That is very fucking weird. But I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's like maybe you should just let the man cook, because obviously what he's doing is working with either God or the universe, because he just hemmed his way past the bullet. And that's a very stupid way of looking at it, because there are bigger things at play here. And yeah, I'm willing to have that conversation. That's kind of my point. Like, you can look at it in a completely farcical and funny way and put it down the head. He grooved his way past a headshot. Or you can look at the bigger ramifications of the situation, in that it is a terrible state of affairs where anybody can take a shot at one of our presidential candidates and we don't know who that person is and they're not dead for it. Of the people, by the people, for the people actually comes down to everything that they do is for us. They move in our name. So if that's the case, somebody swings at them, they swing at us. It's one of those things. It's like, I would understand a nationalist view on that level. Everybody's going to get that, because if you want that person to be accurately representing your views, if they get taken out, what happens to your views? What happens to the influence that you want to have on the world? It dies with them. So if somebody takes a swing at them vicariously, so it's like you would want them to have every privilege, every bit of access, and every avenue be open to them that furthers your goals and ends. It's understandable that you would want that. In that same vein, if your enemies get swung at, but it's still working with the political system, because if they get into office, they have ideas you don't agree with. You're still going to have to back them. That means someone swings at them. That all follows. That all tracks. That all works within the same, not principle. It's not even layered. But I do believe that it goes by rules. Understandable rules that you get what the fuck I'm talking about. I hope that all of that was understood, and all of that is, when I'm speaking about that you understand that I understand the fervor, but Trump is a soft target. I think that's ultimately my point. You want to go after despots. You want to go after people who are amassing power for themselves, simply to exert their will out onto the people around them and be a king on a throne. And you don't like that. You can have a principled approach to that. It's like it was mentioned with the college thing. Anything can be understood with time, money, and expertise. And in the United States, you have a lot of that. So I don't get him as a threat. He's too predictable. Or maybe that's just a me thing. I don't know. So I think what is that, 18 minutes? Yeah. I have very much rambled on, but I haven't named what this video is going to be. Uh, why I think it's weird. But no, I think I should ground it in a larger idea, because it is not just about Trump. And it's more about I I may need to talk about it more later on, but I do think there's at least pieces laid out in the other videos that lean towards a problem that I know everybody has seen, where you can't have top-down governance. Like, you can't have a federal government effectively issue orders and give guidance to a county within a state. Like, they might be able to guide a region of a nation well, the states within that nation with some friction but still working. But then when you get down to the county level, it is near impossible. Like by natural means, it's like where it will be a matter of the speed of the information that gets to the person, or even in that situation, you might have circles, not circles, social circumstances that mean that you can't help that person there. Like when somebody's trying to break into your house, you're not going to want to call the cops at that moment they're breaking in. What you want to have is a gun on you to deter that person. Because in that friction, in that moment right there where your life is in danger, a cop being armed in a car, even if that car is outside your house, that person is inside your house. It's like it's a matter of proximity. Like so, in that situation, you would want to be personally armed, but it's an understandable bit of inefficiency that there would be a waiting time if you call the cops. So in that situation, even there, you can see that it would be more advantageous if there were persistent city patrols and like basically neighborhood watch, but then you actually fund them, give them badges and training, because that is the local populace that would be best equipped to address the issue of a lack of security in that area. And I think that you would consistently need to have that. And I think I was getting towards a point and I missed it. Overall, it's like, okay, naming the video and then looping it into something. Eh, on one end, I've tested the headphones, so I'll be able to tell if it's actually picking up my voice and how well. So that's good. The average citizens, I don't even judge, or yeah, I don't judge the average citizen harshly for their perception of Trump. It's more the news media, and that's also a reason I pointed out the him being known and his persona being out there to the public since Home Alone 2, Shark Tank, um, Trump Steaks, Trump Tower, Trump College. He's a known quantity. So I don't understand the hyper. No, I do understand the hyper. Not the hyper fixation. I can understand the Trump bump because I think that's what it was called. I know a YouTuber named Tim Pool used that terminology. I don't know if it got around, but there was supposed to be a marked increase in attention to news articles within the news cycle when they printed things about Trump. And this coincided with them making their business model into, since they went with a 24 hour news cycle, they had to keep people interested. The route they went with was pissing you off. So they keep talking about something that makes people mad. It gives them a bump in their viewership. So they keep doing it. The overall point I'm trying to get to is that I find it weird the situation that I'm in when it comes to politics and what I observe of how other people are operating. But then I talk about it, and it doesn't sound like I'm confused about it. I'm disappointed in the direction they went in. Because you wanted to eliminate Trump as a threat, shooting him isn't the best route. Like people that you don't shoot the cult leader because the cult then goes nuts and you have a disaster on your hands. Like you don't break up the hippie camp because then they just spread around. Like you don't go into and you don't just go around with force and apply it to whatever situation that you're in because it may not be the best solution. But then you certainly don't not apply force in situations where it should have been applied. And I keep saying this and I don't know how common this wording actually is, but in anywhere in the world currently, there might have been a use for it in the past, but currently, anywhere in the world that you have communist black bloc, they need to be cracked down on. Because that's gang activity. Anywhere you have gang activity should be cracked down on. Because, okay, after you have established on the local level those problems that lead to recruitment in the gang, then you should crack down on it, because at that point you're just hitting the administration of the gang. You're just hitting the people that are doing the recruiting. There's going to be a significant amount of people that are disenfranchised, looking for power, and young men who are looking for some group to belong to that are going to fall into gangs. Yes, but then once you have a system in not a system in place, once you find a group of people that actually have that understanding or working towards addressing that issue, then you can crack down on the people that don't care about any of the misgivings or the strife or the consequences, or no, not just the consequences, but the situation that leads into them having people to prey upon and a gang to build. All they're looking at is in power, the power and influence that they have in that situation, the amount of weight that they're able to throw around and feel good about it. That's all they're doing. So for those people, you tell them to stop or you make them stop. It's one of those applications of force that I think everybody can understand. Even they will understand why they're being stood against. It's because like you're not, even if you are a local leader, you're not leading justly. You're not leading fairly. So you can understand when people rise up and smack you down. So in the situation where it's happening locally, you can run it that way. But any situation where you have foreign gangs, treat them like a foreign army. So in this situation, in the political situation, I don't see there being a lot of honest conversation about the state of affairs. So I guess that's what ideological wars, the state of affairs. I don't think there's an honest and open conversation about how things actually are when it comes to local, federal, and state politics. And I think it's coming from the left. I think there's a level of deceit, a subterfuge coming from the left when it comes to pushing their ideas. It's like, and I know that sounds paranoid, but that's how I think. Like, you can believe that everybody is trying to work towards a better world or trying to improve the situation where you can tell they're agitated and upset about it. But then I dig down into like the reasons, the methods that they're using to address that, and I can tell you're not pointing at this target. You might hit that by accident and like splash damage or something like that, but that's not your target. What you're aiming for is a separate thing. Using Trump as an example. If you're trying to limit Trump's power and influence, shooting him isn't the answer. Speaking out about him is, and having it be accurate is the issue. You want to, what was this Spider-Man movie? You attack his heart. You attack his character. If he's such a bad person, you should be able to say no lies and ruin him. But then anytime anybody does an investigation, it comes down to you either, it's like with the court cases, there was an exaggeration because it's common amongst those type of people, and that's why I was saying that he should be like a pig in shit. When it comes down to politicians and functionaries and the bureaucracy, they're all involved in some level of bureaucratic fuckery. And I'm using that terminology deliberately because it's not something that your common person should be interested or have to understand. That bureaucratic maneuvering that is necessary for the federal government to operate at the size that it is something that on principle still should be efficient and just because of the by the people for of the people for the people kind of thing. Like there still should be an understanding that government efficiency is part of government's existence. It's I have no other way of saying this. You ought to. You should know better. And in any instance where somebody comes along and is able to point out where government is inefficient, they should not be fought. And if they are fought, those that are in opposition to that government inefficiency being pointed out, even if the people doing the pointing out have malicious intent both towards those people being inefficient and the people who are being negatively affected by that inefficiency, even if that person is Hitler themselves. You should still believe the information that they're putting out and then treat Hitler in that separate vein and separate area because it is two separate things, the character of the person pointing out the information and the information that they're pointing out. Did I say it was going to be state of affairs? I don't know. Uh, I'll try to summarize it again. What is the title going to be? Um, Ideological Wars. What I don't get. I'll leave it there. Ideological Wars. What I don't get.